Spirit wants to be really alive in your heart. Spirit wants to be really alive in this ministry, and we as a ministry get to choose. We get to choose. If we want Spirit to guide this ministry, if we want Spirit to guide our lives, what if, let's just try it on, what if we as Unity of Dallas, everybody individually but collectively, what if we decided to dedicate and consecrate my life to the will and work of Jesus Christ? What might happen here? Like if we were serious about it. I mean, it's easy to be serious about it in church on Sunday morning. It's easy to be serious about it, for 5 minutes in your meditation every morning, right? It's easy to be serious about it when you're in this place of peace. But what if we were serious about it in the other places as well? What if, let's just try it on, see what it does energetically. What if we at Unity of Dallas consecrate and dedicate our ministry to the will and the work of Jesus Christ? If you are so willing, please say yes. 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 Can you feel that opening? Can you feel how when you ask, when you call on Spirit and say, be with me, show me, it will be shown. The path will be made open. The ideas will be made expanded. The way will be made. The guidance will be there. But the guidance will be there to experience love. And every time you experience love, then what shows up? Everything unlike love. That's the practice. That's the work. To stand in love, to stand committed to Spirit in the midst of absolutely everything that goes on. Absolutely everything as a practice. Gregory Boyle, I've been talking about him a lot. I've been sharing a lot of his stories. Founder of Homeboy Industries, wrote a book called Tattoos on the Heart. He works with the gangs in Los Angeles. Has been doing that for the gang members. He doesn't work with the gangs as entities. He works with the people who are affected by the gangs individually. And he's got just brilliant stories in here. And he was talking about a young man named Rascal. And Rascal makes more sense. He was one of those kids. He can be recalcitrant, offensive, and he always primed for the fight. He always knows what's best, and he always just argues. That's just his way of being. He was well into his 30s, and he never listened to anybody about anything. And Gregory, who wrote the book, is called by a lot of these boys and girls G. And one day he was in the car with G, and G was just talking, like he does, just talking about something. He goes, I don't even remember what it was. And for the first time ever, Rascal appeared to be listening. And when he got done talking, Rascal said this. He said, I'm going to take that advice, and I'm going to let it marinate right here. And I love that word, marinate. We should all marinate in the intimacy of God. What if we all chose to be intoxicated and marinated by that force that we call God? The word I use often is bask in the field, right? But now, because we learned a new word, can you marinate in this love that is God? See what that might do to your mind and your body and your emotions. Marinate in that intimacy of God. Then he tells another story I want to share with you. It's of Willie. Willie was a young man. He was a charmer. He was a quintessential homie con man who's apt to coax money out of your ATM machine, if you let him. He's full of bravado and posturing, and he wants more to regale you with his exploits than to actually be there in the midst of any. So he was a talker, another talker. He seems to have lots of talkers in his book, and he snuck up on G one day, and he said, "Man, my belly's empty." And G says, "Well, man, my wallet's empty." But sometimes it's easier to give in than to resist. So he says, okay, hop on in. We'll go down to the ATM. And so they get to the ATM at the 7-Eleven, the local 7-Eleven. He says, Willie, you sit here in the car, just in case we run into any of your rival gang members. Just stay put. I'll go get some money and I'll be right back. And he gets out of the car and he starts moving in that direction, and he hears he's not 10 feet away. He goes, hey, hey, hey. And Willie's over there miming. He says, give me the keys to the car so I can listen to the radio. And Jay's like, yeah, no. Yeah, no. And so he mimes back. He says, pray. So Willie rolls his eyes to the heaven, says, he levitates his eyes. Levitate your eyes, just try it out. Right? And he assumes the posture. So Jay goes on to the ATM and he looks back and he finds him still in that posture and seeming only to be half aware. And so he got his money and he came back to the car and he gets back in and he says, something has happened here. Willie is quiet, reflective, and there's a palpable sense of peace in the vehicle. I look at Willie and say, you prayed, didn't you? He doesn't look at me. He's still and quiet. He says, yeah, I did. I start the car. He says, what did God say to you? Well, first he said, shut up and listen. G says, so what'd you do? He goes, come on, G, what am I supposed to do? I shut up and listened. We could all take some advice from that, right? Says, I've never seen him. I began to drive him home to the barrio. I've never seen Willie like this. He's quiet and humble, no need to convince me of anything or talk me out of something else. So he says, so son, tell me something. How do you see God? God, he says, that's my dog right there. And God? How does God see you? Willie doesn't answer at first, so I turn and watch as he rests his head on the recliner, staring at the ceiling of my car. A tear falls down his cheek. Heart full, eyes overflowing. God thinks I'm Fermi. To homies, Fermi means could not be one bit better. Feel it. Let it be God to you. God thinks I could not be one bit better. Marinate and be intoxicated with that intimacy, with the force that we call God. You could not be one bit better, but we're called up. We're called up. We're called up to know it at a whole new level. And God can get really, really tiny if we're not careful. Our spiritual practice can get really, really tiny if we're not careful. We're called to open ourselves, to experience ourselves. We're called to wake up. Wake up to that presence and power that we talk about each and every single week here. We're called to wake up, to let your heart be broken wide open. We're called to know, not intellectual knowing, but to know with every cell of your being that presence and that power that we call God. Right now, in this moment, and forevermore, may the force be with you.